hello, everyone. We'll listen to another episode of Let's Talk Sports with Tim McKain, and I am here with Dylan Mason, 3-2. He just had an incredible victory. He fought against Jordan Weeks at Ultimate Battlegrounds 5, December 5th. How you doing, man? And just explain also, like, going into the fight, leading up to the fight, and also ultimately winning the fight.
So I got the call. Let's see. I think it was November 3rd. Yeah, it was actually the week of our wedding. My wife and I got married on November 7th. So I've been bugging the hell out of my manager trying to get a fight. And, they just kept getting pulled through or people wouldn't accept fights. So I finally got one and asked my wife or my fiance at the time. I was like, can I take it? She's like, yeah, sure. Go for it. She loves the fighting almost more than I do. And so I was like, all right, went straight to the gym and started camp. So it was only 4-week camp, something like that, which I personally like. I don't mind taking short notice fights because I stay in shape. I stay at the gym pretty often, and then my day job is, we'll get into that later, but that keeps me in shape almost just as much as fighting. But leading up to it, I didn't have any injuries starting out. But as camp progressed, I don't think a fighter has ever taken a fight on 100%.
Right.
Healthy. Kind of messed my foot up a little bit. It's good now. I got it taken care of, but I won't get into that. But I had a good camp, good quick camp. I felt really good. It was my first fight at 55, actually. Pro. I had about 5 or 6 as an amateur at 55, but that weight cut, it's not the same as it used to be. I'm getting older, I'm getting bigger, I'm getting stronger.
You're 28, man. That's young still.
It is, man, but doing it 16, 17 times, it just, it takes a lot out of you. And like, I'm getting stronger. Like, I'm working on my weightlifting and, I'm gaining more muscle. So I think 55 is going to be a good weight class for me to stay at. 50 is definitely manageable. I like 150. So either one I'll take. Weeks he wanted to meet me at 50, so I was like, all right, we'll take it at 55, whatever. And so like I was saying, I had a good camp. Fight day was very good, felt very good. And then my performance, I'm not extremely happy with it. Obviously, I got a submission, which is good, but man, I'm trying to knock people out like I was as an amateur. And I knew his game plan was go to the ground because, his jiu-jitsu is his thing. But also knew he was a professional boxer and he was 4-0 in boxing. I was like, well, maybe he'll stand with me. I personally wanted to stand, but I always knew that once he got in trouble, he tried to take it to the ground. And so I worked a lot of groundwork, which I work groundwork regardless. But yeah, the first round, he had a head and arm choke and he was in mount. And I just felt him squeezing the hell out of me. And I was still breathing, I was perfectly fine. I remember the ref getting really close to me, like face to face, like a foot away, to make sure I wasn't asleep. And I kind of winked at him because I know that I'm fine, as long as I can breathe, I'm good, And so I felt him, using all his energy. I'm like, I'm going to let him use the gas, just let him burn his out really quick in the fight. And I'm pretty sure that's what happened. I think he exhausted himself out. My cardio felt fine throughout it. My groundwork felt I was really confident. I felt a lot stronger than him, especially after he burned himself out. And, I just waited for the right moment. I had a few arm bars in there. And like I said in an interview at the fight, his arms, man, crazy. I tried to break it, wouldn't break. So I just transitioned I was like, attack the neck. So I went to a transition from the arm bar to the triangle, landed a few elbows on his face, and that was it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I want you to speak on also, like you said, fighters are not ever 100% healthy. So has there ever been a fight where you re-aggravated an injury in the fight, and how did you mentally prepare yourself to continue and pursue the fight?
So you're talking about if they hit my injury while it's happening in the fight? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Yeah, he did that. It was my foot. He stepped on it. And man, I won't go into detail about my foot, but yeah, the adrenaline's high. And you're in a fist fight, I'm not going to go in there and complain. I'm not going to tap out from an injury I already have. I'm just going to fight through it, just like every fighter should. I mean, if you're a fighter, you know you've been through that. I always think about, like, I always say I fight for our veterans, and I really do. I have a lot of family members in the military and stuff, and, like, you know, when they're in combat, they you know, they get shot in the leg or something, you know, they can't, like, tap out or anything. So, like, if they can fight through that, I can fight through a little fucking injury. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's more of a mental thing, I feel like, than physical. You know, your body's capable of pushing itself to newer heights and newer limits than you think is possible. And that's what I feel like I always bring to the cage. You'll never see me, like, you know, you'll never see me give up, if that makes sense.
Yes,
Especially
sir.
when you're or something.
Yes, sir. Well, speaking about your military career, what led you to join the military, to join the Marines, and also how did the Marines develop you as a man?
I had a few buddies that joined growing up. They're older than me, so they were already in. And my brother, he was also a Marine. And, you know, I've always, like, followed in those guys' footsteps and my brother's footsteps. And I saw how big of an impact that the military made on them and my brother. And so I was like, man, I need that. I need that discipline aspect mainly. And, man, it's changed my entire life. That's why I always walk out the Marine Corps flag, just because I don't know where I would be without that experience. In those 6 years of my life, they were just, I mean, they were, like, definitely had shitty times, but definitely had some good ones. And it's giving me that mental edge over a lot of people. I feel like a lot of people haven't been through shit or anything, you know, they just go out there and fight. And I feel like it's definitely a very good part of my resume for fighting and just helping me out in the long run in everyday life, not just fighting, you know?
Exactly, exactly. Well, I want to ask you this question about mixed martial arts. When was the first time, the first moment? Do you remember the first moment you fell in love with mixed martial arts?
Yes, I do. And that was my first fight. I only been training for like 4 or 5 months. And I had a small wrestling background in high school. I wrestled for 2 years. That's a whole different story in itself. But went to an MMA gym in Mount Airy, North Carolina. Dean Carpenter was one of my head coaches. And I trained for about 4 or 5 months, something like that. And they wanted to see, you know, how I would do in a cage, like, you know, fighting somebody. And I won. And that winning experience is like, I don't know, I can't explain it. You know, it's the best feeling in the world to me. And ever since then, I was like, man, I love this feeling. So I just kept going and going and going. And 10 years later, here I am having an
Yes,
interview.
sir. Exactly, exactly. Well, speak on the progression from the time that you entered the cage for the first time 10 years ago to development as a fighter that you are now. What are some of the struggles and the victories that you had to go through to become the fighter that you are?
I'd say the struggles would be just like for everybody, you know, missing big events, like for family and friends, you know, like, you know, especially at like, I was 19 years old. So, you know, that age to like 24, 25, you're going out partying, you know, college, all that stuff. And I'd skip everything just to go train. Lost a lot of friends just because, you know, we were on different paths in life. Like I chose training, they chose partying or whatever it was. And, you know, went our separate ways. So I lost friends, gained new ones, definitely like teammates. Relationships were a big problem with that too. Girls always thinks it's like cool for some reason to date a fighter or something, and then they go through a camp or something with them, and they just leave. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot more into it that people don't understand, people don't see, and truly only a fighter would know, or their significant other, or their wife, or whatever. Or, so yeah, that's definitely. I'm pretty used to it now, obviously, but going through the stages, you know, making myself show up to the gym and miss all these things, that was probably like, it's not really hard, but that was, you know, that's just part of it. And what was your other question?
And what were the victories? What are some of the good things that you've learned? Just the good experiences also. So also the sacrifices, like you said, with the friends and the women and the big events. But what are also some of the good things that have come from you pursuing your dreams?
Number one thing is respect. Growing up, you know, I was a little guy. I wasn't, you know, respect it as much as, you know, older people or bigger dudes like in high school, you know, because the bigger dude's going to beat your ass, like, you know.
I feel you.
So definitely the respect is my number one thing that I feel like I've earned from a community, from people. That is definitely my motive. It's just earning respect, earning, you know, carrying myself well, not out there talking shit or anything, just carrying myself well. And just continuing this journey of learning martial arts. And I always tell my teammates, I'm like, man, you're going to learn every single day you come in here. Like, I don't care if you started when you were 10 and you're 80 years old, you're going to learn something. I was just telling my teammates that too. They were showing me stuff. I was showing them stuff. And it's a never ending cycle. And I'm really falling in love with the sport again. So,
Wow.
you know, a lot of people hit like a plateau and, you know, they start going downhill. I feel like I'm still climbing a mountain. I'm not in my prime yet, but I feel it creeping up. You know, I had a teammate, Mike Stevens. He always told me, he's like, man, you'll feel your prime one day. And it was like 3 years ago. I was like, really? He's like, yeah, man, you'll feel it come. And like, I'm starting to feel the beginning stages of it. So I still feel like 2-3 years. I think you're going to see me somewhere big sooner than later, if that makes sense.
Yes, sir. It does. It does. So, Dylan, have you learned more from your wins or your losses?
Definitely my losses. I learned every fight. Like this last fight, I had the armbar and I couldn't finish it. So after the fight, I went to the back and I put myself in that position again. And I started working it just because, you know, that's the best time to learn is like right after something happens, right? If you get submitted with the guillotine, you need to go to the back and learn how to get out of it, you know, and then train that for the next camp and stuff like that. So I always do that after fights. Cause you know, there's always something always happens. Doesn't matter how quick the fight is, something always happens. Always go to the back and rework whatever it is that I was messing up on, whether it's a win or a loss. But I definitely feel like my losses beat that. If I get submitted, like my pro debut, I got submitted with an armbar. Man, I practice my armbar defense like it's nothing now. Like, and I get put in them all the time. Like, I just let people get them on me, and then I just get out because I don't want to get submitted with an armbar ever again. You know what I'm saying? So.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I was speaking to a fighter, and he talked to me, and he said that he believes that in amateurs he had the tougher battles than he did when he in his pros. Do you feel like in your career as an amateur and as a pro, what were some of the greatest battles that you had, and was the amateur tougher than the pros?
So far, you know, the biggest difference between pro and amateur is obviously the longer rounds, the elbows and knees to the face and stuff like that. And every state varies, and I've fought in 3 or 4 different states. But as of now, amateur, I definitely had tougher battles. I had this one fight against Vic Dixit. It was for XFN in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And man, it was a split decision. It was a great fight. I'd love to fight him as a pro just because it was fun. Like, we were out there swinging, beating the shit out of each other. And that was my favorite fight. As a pro, I just feel like it's more technical, you know, made that next step. Like, oh, they want to pursue this as a career. So they're more focused. Your fight IQ has to go up. You got to really dial in what you're good at, what you're bad at. So, and I only have 5 pro fights. I mean, it's nowhere near what I want to be. I want to have 20, 30, something like that. So I'm still learning. I had 14 as an amateur. So I'm still waiting. Once I hit 14 as a pro, then I'd like to bring that back up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, speaking on fighting, you want to fight 30 times. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, 37 years old, just beat Jeff Neal. What is your perspective on the old saying that fighting is the young man's game, not the old man's game? But we're seeing fighters like Stephen Wonderboy. We see fighters like even Anderson Silva and beyond. They're older in their prime. So like for you, you want to fight 30 times. Like, when does Dylan Mason want to hang it up? When would you want to hang it up? And do you believe the saying, fighting is a young man's game, or is that dead now?
I think that's dead, man. It's a good question. I just feel like when you know, you know. I mean, when you when you hit like a certain point, let's say you lose like 4 or 5 in a row or something, then I feel like,
Yeah.
all right, like, kind of obvious,
Yes.
like respect to that person for doing it, but like now you gotta find something else. Like, and I'm sure my time will come, but I mean, everyone's does. You can't fight forever.
Right.
But for now, I feel like like I said, I'm still climbing that hill, and I feel like I'm not even halfway up it. So I have a lot to prove and a lot of fights left in me. I stay pretty healthy. My diet's pretty healthy. I train all the time. I recover a lot better than I used to now. So yeah, I feel like at this point, I mean, there's a lot of, they say a male does not reach their prime until they're like 31 or something. Even Wonderboy Tom's, what do you say? He's 37 and he's
37.
still winning, and he looks good. He's like healthy, like he's,
Yes.
his dad was actually in the corner at the last event, and that was really interesting, getting able to meet him and talk to him, and that was an awesome experience. That's funny that you bring up Wonderboy. Like Derek Lewis, he started training when he was 28. I mean, I don't know how old he is, but I mean, it just shows you like you can start anywhere.
That's true. That's true. So what is success to Dylan Mason? What does success look like to you?
Just trying to reach my full potential. Like I said, in the sport, you learn every single day. Like you'll never be perfect. You'll never be the best. There's always someone better than you. There's always someone worse than you. And you got to realize that. But that person that's better than you, like you can teach them something. They can teach you something. That's why I like martial arts. It's like a small niche group, where you can just teach each other, help each other, and then, go out there and perform and entertain people. That's what it's for. It's entertainment. But what was your question? I'm sorry.
You answered it.
All right. Yeah.
You did. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So my next question is, so Roy Jones Jr., he talked about how he would not fight in real fights with members of his team or people who he sparred with. Would you ever fight with someone you sparred with? Because the reason why Roy Jones Jr. didn't was because they were too familiar with his style. Would you ever fight with somebody who you trained with for fights?
That's a good question. I mean, if I had to, I would, because, people run their mouth before fights, and then after the fight, they're like, so I mean, if I had to, but like, I don't want to, it's my teammates, they help me, I help them. Like they're family to me, but, for entertainment purposes and money purposes. Yeah. I mean.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So let's say a little boy or a little girl, they see Dylan Mason, he's following his dreams. He's been in the game for 10 years. He's on his way to the mountaintop. What are some of the lessons that you would want to give to somebody who wants to follow in your footsteps?
So I started a personal training business. We turned our garage into a gym so I could train more. And then my wife also, she's big into fitness, so she wanted to work out at home, especially with COVID and everything. And I started like a personal training thing, and I put it on Facebook, and I had a ton of people reach out, and I only took like 5 because I picked 5 because number one, time. I work full-time job, I train full-time, and now I gotta train clients, which I love. But I picked people that I knew would be disciplined enough to train in the sport, and someone that needed help, like whatever their problem is, to help them out, change their lives, introduce them to martial arts. And I always tell them this. I had a coach in Florida tell me, and it's stuck with me my whole life. His name was Ben Stark. He's a head coach at American Top Team in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. He said the hardest part's showing up, and that is 100% true, man. Like, if you want to start this journey, just show up to the gym. Your coach or your trainer or whatever is going to have everything laid out for you. You just got to listen. You just got to do it. It's kind of like the military. Like, you wake up in the morning, like you have a chain of command. Whoever's above you tells you what to do all day. And whoever's above him tells him what to do, and so on and so forth. So I'd always tell him, like, yeah, start the journey, man. It changed my life for the better. I don't know where I'd be without martial arts, but just show up. The hardest part is definitely showing up to it.
Definitely showing up. Okay, so where can people find you on social media, and when do you plan on fighting next?
My Instagram handle is Dylan Mason, Dylan Mason, the number 24, and then Facebook Dylan Mason. I don't have a Twitter. Yeah, I think that's all the social media I use. I try to stay, I post about fighting and stuff, and me and my wife, but other than that, I try to stay off that. But in my next fight, I'm actually waiting on the contract. I think I can tell you the date, February 6th. So yeah,
Awesome.
I got a call 3 days after my fight, and I think it was 3 or 4 days, and I was like, yeah, I'll take it. So
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Get the
Okay,
ball.
so go ahead.
I'm trying to get the ball rolling. I haven't fought like this. The December 5th fight was my first fight since last July. That was like what, 16-month layoff. Like it was,
Right.
man, I've never been that long without fighting ever. So that sucked. So yeah, February 6th, hopefully.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Next step, and then hopefully one in March, one in April. As long as I'm healthy, man, I'm good. I'll just keep going.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. My last question to you is this. So Mike Tyson, his first year in fighting, he fought 15 times. So he fought every 2 weeks. My question to you is, how many fights would you take in a year? Especially like you said in COVID, you had the longest layoff, 6 months. So how many fights would you take in a year, the most?
The most? I don't know if I could put a number on that, just because, I mean, as long as I'm healthy, and I mean, I would fight every weekend, but that's not possible.
Right.
It's just, shit happens, injuries happen. I mean, it's a brutal sport, but yeah, I couldn't put a max number on it. I think the most I ever had was like 4, which is not a lot, but I mean, I'm
4.
looking to.
What's a lot in mixed martial arts? What's a lot of fights in a year in mixed martial arts?
For me?
Yes.
A lot to me would be like 8 or 9. So I would in a heartbeat. But that'd be a good year. That'd be a good.
Yes, sir.
If I can get 8 or 9 fights, but yeah, we'll see. I can't predict the future. I don't know what's going to happen, so we'll see. I'm just looking forward to February.
Sir. Well, Dylan, yes, sir. I can't wait to see you February 6th. I know you're gonna put on a show. I cannot wait to see. Dylan, I really appreciate you for coming on. I know it's Merry Christmas. I know it's Christmas Eve, but I definitely appreciate you, man. And best of luck to you and your family this holiday season. And yes, sir.
Thank you. You guys have a Merry Christmas, and hopefully I'll see you in February.